everyone, Metal and Coffee here, the internet's busiest metal music nerd. And today we're going to be reviewing Ulcerate's 7th studio album called Cutting the Throat of God.
Whoa, hey, who are you?
You don't remember me? You called me Metal Mommy last time.
I don't know. Doesn't sound like something I'd say. Plus, you look more like an alternative aunt than a metal mommy.
Maybe you should change your sweater for once.
Okay, fine. I know when I'm not wanted.
Well, with that out of the way, Ulcerate came across my radar in 2020 when they released their last record. The band got their start in 2000, originally named as Bloodwreath, but changing their name in 2002. They're a trio from New Zealand that tend to be labeled as death metal, but is that really accurate? You can definitely hear not only death metal, but also black metal and post-metal influences, especially in their latest work. In their earlier years, they were releasing high-energy, aggressive tech death, which is something you can easily hear in their second full-length album, Everything is Fire. But even then, they had a knack for completely drowning you in constant chaotic blast beats and just being super black metal-esque. As you progress further in their discography though, you can hear them start to embrace creating melancholy and space in their music. With their last release, Stare into Death and Be Still, which is their 6th studio album, the band marks this as their decision to start moving away from being a band rooted entirely in dissonance. They are now making a conscious effort to just be all about melody and power. I find it really interesting that this is where I chose to hop on board with them, because their dark wave, almost gothic sounding melodies are what made me gravitate towards them in the first place. But not even just that. The record's themes of grief and demise had a significant impact on me. It might be weird to say, but I find a lot of comfort in the artistic expression of sadness and general vulnerability. I think that's why I gravitate towards bands like Anathema, 40 Watt Sun, Cult of Luna, Catatonia. I just find it really refreshing and relatable. And now with their new record, Cutting the Throat of God, the band continues to explore, quote unquote, the most fundamental aspect of all life, death. The band excels at crafting a hollowed and disturbing atmosphere, almost as if capturing the inner dialogue of existential dread and turmoil. For instance, in the album opener, The Flow Through Ashen Hearts, it immediately sets you up in this bitterly cold climate with its dark wave sounding riffs and haunting vocals. The drum work is MVP, though I feel like that's been the case for their past couple records. It's what brings that black metal element to them, and it's kind of scary how commanding of your attention it is. The Dawn is Hollow is a perfect example of this. It creates this dreadful atmosphere contrasted by clean guitar melodies and a brooding bass line that basically serves as a sinister calm amongst the chaos. This track, with its focus on the meaninglessness of existence, is a favorite of mine for its technicality and unexpected turns. Transfiguration in and Out of Worlds is another favorite of mine because it seems to be more straightforward death metal, with their own little twist on it, of course. It features a moody and ominous groove with a simple yet impactful guitar riff, creating this sort of comforting yet gloomy ambience. Throughout the record, Ulcerate's ability to turn chaos on and off at just the right moments is what keeps me so engaged, whether it be through dissonant soundscapes or minimalistic and brooding riffs. Their lyrics, like in the track The Flow Through Ashen Hearts, with lines like, quote unquote, these wicked and tortured dreams, intertwined with the real until becoming the real, just further enhances the album's grim themes and just makes it a profoundly impactful listening experience. The title track, Cutting the Throat of God, is a powerful closer that details out how you've reached your final moments and how all that repenting was for nothing. The initial flow of the record is reflective and pensive, in a sense that you are being forced to face the terrorizing reality that you are just immortal. This is similar to the feelings I felt on the previous record, which is what sold me. Midway through the record, the aggression and confrontation pick up, with lyrics like alive to exist, awake to expire. And that's from Transfiguration in and Out of Worlds. I can't be the only one who has a very bodily visceral reaction to a lyric like that. It literally stresses me out to think about it. And fortunately or unfortunately, this is a repeating battle throughout the record, and it's one of the many reasons why I love this record and this band. While this record has many strengths, there are a few areas where it falls short. For example, in the track Further Opening the Wounds, it struggles to maintain engagement in the first half, which makes it somewhat forgettable at some points. Despite the band's intention to create this discomfort, it does start to blur together a little bit, losing its distinctiveness. The track does redeem itself though, with this moment of painful resolve and invigorating grooves. To See Death Just Once is another track that kind of loses its form a little bit, but once again, it does redeem itself, so ultimately it wasn't that bothersome. The track is dynamic enough though, and even has moments of really aggressive guitar picking that jolts my attention back. These are the only two tracks that suffer from this kind of blurry gray area. Maybe there's just too much going on technically for my taste, or maybe I'm just a fangirl for the dark, sinister, and slow sections of their music. But either way, that intense repetition and lack of distinction makes those parts of the music less impactful and less memorable. Overall, Ulcerate's latest album shows their incredible musicianship and their adeptness at creating a cohesively grim listening experience. The band's ability to weave intricate, dissonant sounds with dark, almost ugly sounding melodies, and I mean ugly in the best way possible, is evident throughout the record. As I said before, the album attempts to understand the concept of death, but at the same time accepts that one is hopeless against it. The only drawbacks on the album were moments where everything felt too blended together, but those moments were redeemed pretty quickly. In comparison to other records, I don't think I can honestly compare it to anything outside of their previous record because, as I mentioned before, Stare Into Death and Be Still marked a new chapter for the band. Not to say that their earlier work is not worth checking out, because it absolutely is, especially if you love nonstop aggression and intensity. But if you are open to the idea of experimentation and self-reflection in a facing your demons kind of way, I highly recommend these past two records. Now, Cutting the Throat of God in comparison to Stare Into Death and Be Still, and keeping in mind that both are about death, I'd say Ulcerate elevated their ability to convey this really, really grim atmosphere in the newest one. There's still moments throughout Cutting the Throat of God kind of hit you in the soul a little bit more. It's a little sharper, and I feel like it invokes a lot more rage and emotion, something that I didn't quite get with Stare Into Death and Be Still. I can only see them continuing to get better at their ability to sink you into their misery and despair. In the end, Cutting the Throat of God is very powerful, and it shows Ulcerate continuing to pave their own way, pave their own sound in the death metal, black metal, post-metal, the everything metal realm. With that said, I'm feeling a light 9. Transition, how would you rate it? How would you rate it? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Thanks so much to Anthony for having me again, and I will see you next time, metalheads.